What's up, Juicy Queens? Welcome back to the Juicy Truth. I am coming to you from this episode after 2 weeks of spending time with family. And let me tell you, while it was mostly an enjoyable experience, I have, integrated some wisdom after these experiences that I think might be helpful in maybe navigating your own family dynamics or understanding how our families can play a role in either our healing and our growth or staying stuck in loops of, limiting beliefs, trauma, and all of those things. So, welcome back to the Juicy Truth. My name is Dr. Jenny. And like I said, I just spent 2 weeks with my family and my partner's family, and 0 out of 10 wouldn't recommend doing them back to back. Unfortunately, I didn't have any choice in the planning process, but although these experiences were so wonderful and I'm so thankful to be able to spend time with family, as you may know, family can be challenging. It can be, we can have beautiful, loving relationships with our family, but even if you have the best relationship with your family, like 10 out of 10, amazing relationship, I would say to some degree, family is still they're going to be some of the people that challenge you the most, that activate or trigger you the most, and they can also be the people that treat you like shit. And we put up with more from our family than I think we would other people. At least just what I've seen from other people in my life. And like I would say my relationship with my family and my relationship with my partner's family is pretty dang good. Like I love them. I am very thankful to have the relationships that I have with them, but that doesn't mean that it's not still challenging and that I don't need to like practice nervous system regulation and put my patience pants on when I spend time with them. Because I think especially if you are on a journey of, unpacking your trauma, unpacking your limiting beliefs, growing into your highest self, your most evolved self, I think somewhere along the way you are going to realize that your family is often the people that, aren't along for that ride, at least not to the degree that you are. Because often, at least in my experience, and a lot of the women that I work with, we are the first people in our families, the people going first really in healing so much of this wounding that we have passed down generation to generation. We're the first, people in our lives that often have the tools available, the resources available to do this kind of work. So it can be really frustrating to spend time with family, especially if you're on a like personal development journey. And what I want to clear up here is like your way is not better than theirs, unless your parents are like super shitty. We'll speak to that in a little bit here. But your way, my way is not any better than my parents or the other people in my family. It's just different. And if you are on some journey of like personal development, trying to be your best, highest self, trying to heal all the wounds that you have, I don't want you to use that as an excuse to like put a divide between you and your family or like shit on your family. They're really doing the best that they can for what they know and the tools that they have. And it's hard to see things from your own perspective. Once you do feel like you've done some of the healing and some of the work, like sometimes it is challenging to watch our families and listen to our families and see the situations they get themselves into, see the continual like limiting beliefs that they hold, the places that they keep themselves stuck. But you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. So the biggest thing that you can do for your family, I would say, and even for generations after you, if you are a parent or wanting to become a parent, is to heal your own shit and to stay in your lane to a certain degree. Like you can do your best to inspire the people around you, especially your family, to do the work that they need to do to like unearth any traumas, support and heal their bodies, come home to their bodies, to create a better future. But you cannot force them to do that work. And I would say the best way to do that is just leading by example, being the one that's willing to go first, being the one that's willing to learn how to feel your feelings if that's not something you're able to do. That's a big one in my family is like, people aren't so great at feeling their emotions. And like, that's okay. But I wanted to live a different way. So, something that I've been moving through a lot over the last 10 years is like just learning how to feel my feelings and be in my body and create safety in there. And that's something that I love helping other women do as well. So, maybe you are the one in your family that has to go first. Maybe you're the one in your family who's going to be fucking frustrated as you watch the rest of your family continue to do the same old shit, just a different day. But that's on them. It's not on you. You do not have to take personal responsibility for the rest of your family healing. I mean, unless you want to, but like you don't have to be a martyr. You don't have to be the one that's like doing the most, trying to get the rest of your family to be saved, because often maybe they don't want to be saved. Maybe they don't even recognize that there's a problem. And I would say that's not your job to fix. And I run into a lot of women who have this like savior complex around their family. And I think that it's beautiful to a certain degree to want to see the best for your family, to want them to heal and to change and to grow. But you can't do it at the point where you're sacrificing yourself, babe. Like, it is so not worth your time and energy to constantly try to fix your family and to constantly try to get them to do the work when they're just not going to. Again, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. So, all that you can do, all that you can take responsibility for is your own body, your own emotions, your own nervous system, how you show up in the world, and how you relate to your family. You can't control anything that they do, but you can control how you react, how you respond, how you show up in the world. And hopefully, that will inspire them to do the same. And maybe it won't. And you have to be able to detach from that outcome. I'm very thankful that as I've continued to, go on my own kind of personal journey with just figuring out who the fuck I am, remembering who I am, remembering what I believe in, remembering what my purpose is here, how I want to show up in the world. I'm very thankful that as I've started to navigate that, like a lot of people have come along with me. My twin sister started doing a lot of like personal development work and like really getting into coming into her own and coming into her own beliefs, and like it's been so beautiful to watch that unfold. And my a couple of my best friends, like of course they were kind of doing this already, and it's just been really fun to like do it alongside of them. And even my parents, I would say, like my mom came to a group breathwork session that I facilitated, and that was like fucking huge for our relationship, for just her in general. She had a great experience, which was like, yes, I love that. What a win. My dad has started to open up and share more about his, trauma that he experienced, especially in childhood. And like my dad and I have had conversations that I would have never in a million years imagined that I would have with my dad, like emotional, raw, vulnerable conversations. And that is something that I really don't think would have happened unless I was as deeply immersed in this work as I am, and like be able to actually hold a space for him to feel like he has the safety to express emotions. He also was raised in a generation of men where it's like not okay to share your feelings. He even said to me and my fiance a few weeks ago when we were on vacation, we were talking about like just men being able to emote, men being able to share what they're feeling and to express their emotions in a healthy way. And he's like, yeah, but you don't do that in front of your wife. Like, you don't show emotions in front of your wife. Maybe your closest friend or like your brother, you can, you can do that occasionally, like, but you don't do that in front of your wife. And I was like, respectfully, Dad, I have to disagree, because when Rob, my partner, has, over the course of the last 8 years that we've been in a relationship, he has learned to embody his emotions, to actually feel his feelings, to tell me what's going on, rather than like his, ingrained Irish Catholic way of just stuffing everything down and waiting until it explodes. He would never explode out of anger, but just like he would get so frustrated because he didn't let himself feel anything for like months and months and months, and then it would build and something would be like the straw that broke the camel's back. So my dad said this of like, oh yeah, you don't show emotions in front of your wife, like she'll think you're weak, or she'll think she'll look down on you. And like unfortunately there are some women out there who will judge a man for showing emotions, and we can get into that on another episode because I think that's a big topic. But for me personally, I have never been more turned on than when my partner has learned how to feel his feelings, and he actually shares with me what's going on up in his little monkey brain, and he invites me to like hold space for him and be vulnerable. The times that we've had conversations that have been him, being emotionally vulnerable and raw, like of course in a safe space, have brought us so much closer together. It has made me so like proud to be his partner, so turned on, maybe not in a sexual way. Okay, maybe a little. Maybe there's like a little tingle. But just so excited and proud for him, because I know for the last 27 years of his life, he wasn't able to show emotions very well. And that's something that I look to his parents and I see why. So moral of the story is my dad, brought this up of like, oh yeah, men don't show emotions. But he's only saying that because he grew up with a dad who never told him he loved him, who thought it was gay to tell your son that you love him, who thought it was, not okay to show emotions. And we are literally just a byproduct of the family that we grow up in until we choose a different way. And I think that's why spending time with family can feel so frustrating, oppressive, draining, exhausting, because we are often trying to be the one that does things differently. And so often our family is, they're still stuck in those ways. Like hearing my dad say it's not okay to show emotions really, I mean, it frustrated me, but he is who he is. I'm not gonna like fight with him. He's a stubborn German man. I get my stubbornness from him, but I literally finally got to the point where I'm willing to challenge my dad on beliefs, which is something I never would have done, being the goody two shoes, like a good girl that I was for most of my upbringing. I would never question anything my parents said. I would follow the rule book to a T, which I really don't love doing anymore. And so I just questioned him. I'm like, no, like, you don't, that's maybe your belief. That's what you grew up with. But I personally appreciate when Rob shows his emotions and tells me what he's feeling. It makes me feel closer to him. It makes me feel so proud of him. It makes me feel happy that I can hold that space for him. And I just like went through kind of this list, and my dad, grumbled, but I'm happy that I shared my perspective with him, because I think he's operating off of these like very old, very crusty conditioning about like how a man should show up emotionally. But there have been times where my dad has like opened up to me and actually gotten really vulnerable and shared with me. And again, that's brought us closer. And I don't think that ever would have happened. I don't think those conversations would happen had I not been the one to kind of like dip my toes in this work first and just be willing to share a little bit more with them. And to, I haven't even shared most of my journey with them in like how everything has unfolded, but I've even shared little snippets about, my relationship to alcohol, my relationship to my body. And I think in some way that has been helpful for us to share and to communicate. But I do not expect my parents to like have the same beliefs as me. I don't expect my family to have the same beliefs as me, and that's why it can be challenging to spend a lot of time with them. I think Ram Dass said it best: you think you're enlightened, spend a week with your family. And that's because our families, again, they're often stuck in old conditioning, in their own wounding. We are, as humans, are so conditioned. Our minds love the familiar. They love to stay the same. They love to repeat the same patterns over and over and over again on autopilot, so they don't have to think about the potential danger or threat that comes with doing things differently. So, especially as you get older, the saying of like getting stuck in your ways, stuck in a rut, like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. There's a reason why those things are said. They're cliche for a reason. Is because as you get older, the more and more you repeat these default patterns, the harder it gets to rewire them. It's not impossible. It can absolutely be done, especially with, the right type of therapy, somatic modalities like breath work, even exploring things like plant medicine, or things that just help you break out of that default state can help an old dog learn new tricks. So I am firmly planted in the belief that like people can change no matter what age they are, but they have to be willing to do the work. They have to be willing to see that there's a need for that change. And a lot of the times our families just like really aren't aware of that or open to it. And I do think that everybody's just doing the best that they can for what they know. And I also have found that it's a lot easier to have more compassion for my family and my partner's family and just everybody in my life the more that I've learned about inner child work. So I'm probably not the best person to explain this, but I'm always happy to bring somebody on who is an expert in this field. If that's something you think would be helpful for you, either send a comment below on Spotify or Apple, or you can send me a DM. I'm happy to bring somebody on who's like literally an expert in internal family systems and inner child work. But the more that I have explored this concept that within us, within each of us as adults, is an inner child, is a part of us that is still existing as this like little kid running around in a big body. And this part of us, this inner child part of us, just wants to feel safe, happy, and loved. And oftentimes, if we don't get that in our actual childhood, when we are adults, this inner child is going to be the one that's running the show. This inner child is going to be the one that's seeking validation from other people. It's seeking love and support from wherever it can get it. This inner child is often a place where we come up with our patterns of avoidance, or our patterns of codependence, or our patterns of self-sabotaging, or so many of these places where we get frustrated with ourselves as adults is stemming from this inner child, this version of you who just wants to feel safe, happy, and loved. And maybe she didn't get that at the time when she actually needed it in childhood. And so much of our responsibility as adults is being willing to meet our inner child, to get to know her or him, and to understand what they didn't get in childhood that they now need from you as an adult, which seems pretty meta. It is a little meta. But being able to actually connect with and envision yourself as a child and understanding what you may have needed that you didn't get from your family. Because again, we're all doing the best that we can for what we know. And I think a lot of parents are at least previous generations especially, are so unaware of emotional intelligence. They didn't have the tools available. Culturally, it wasn't acceptable to like go to therapy and do the work. We have been raised by a generation of parents who their emotional intelligence could definitely be a little bit better across the board. And again, this is not to shit on them. It's just to understand that they're a byproduct of their parents and we're a byproduct of our parents and so on and so forth until you are the one who's willing to go first and break the fucking cycle. And a big way of doing this is through inner child work of like getting to know what your childhood was like, who you were as a kid, who you were before people told you who to be, how your nervous system and your mind has started to protect you from childhood. So a big one that I found was like the perfectionist protector. If I was just perfect and I got straight A's and I did really well and it wasn't a burden on my family because my parents were both exhausted, they were working full time. There was like my dad lost his job for a while. Like there's so much turmoil. And I want to preface this with saying I grew up in a very stable, loving home where all my physical needs were met. My emotional needs were maybe not met all the time. So I can only speak from that lens. And if you didn't grow up in a home where your physical needs were met, maybe you were experiencing big T or little t trauma. Maybe you were working with parents who had no emotional capacity. So those needs weren't met. I hear you. I see you. I'm sending you so much love and know that there are a lot of resources and support available for you to like start to unpack that and to understand how that's impacting you as an adult and how you can move forward in becoming the person that you actually want to be, not just a byproduct of this environment that you grew up in. Because again, we are going to be that person until we step out of that box, until we break that mold. So I'm very fortunate to have grown up in a household where my physical needs were met. I was always fed, clothed, housed. There's always a roof over my head. I didn't have to deal with anything, as traumatic as that. But I did grow up in a family where my parents didn't model emotional intelligence. They didn't model great communication in some ways. They were doing the best that they could. And so I think a big part of me just adopting this let me be as good as possible, let me be as perfect as possible was a way to get their validation, their support, and their love in the only way that I knew how as a little kid. The coping mechanisms that you pick up as a little kid probably aren't the ones that you want to be using as an adult, but they often are until we start to do this work, until we start to unpack, like, this is why I do that thing. Instead of actually feeling my feelings, this is why I always strive for perfection. Just using that as a running example, my dad to this day will still label himself as a perfectionist. He will do everything in his power to make everything perfect. And his dad was the same way. He was doing it to get validation from his dad. And what did I do? Became a perfectionist so I could get the validation from my dad. Like, again, it's just these patterns. You can either do the same thing or you tend to do the opposite. Like, my sister, I love her dearly, but we kind of went opposite directions where I went to be this like perfectionist, goody two shoes, never be a burden on my parents, always be helpful, always be the peacekeeper. She went more of the rebellious route, and I fucking admire her for it because I think she had more of an exciting like childhood experience. But it's come with its own wounding, its own patterns. But she went more of the like rebellious route of like she is smart, but like she didn't want to try in school. She didn't want to get straight A's. She just like showed up and did her thing and like moved on. She like we just went very different paths. And I love her to death. And like I think this has showed up in different ways for both of us as adults, but it both stems back to the fact that we needed love and support and acceptance from our parents, whatever way we could get that. And your inner child maybe doesn't make the smartest decisions on how they learn to cope, but they do make a decision that makes sense to them at that time. Like you, as a 4-year-old, learning that if you do something really well, your parents give you validation and praise and love, well, then you're going to do what any 4-year-old would do and like keep trying to do things to get that validation, praise, and love. So this might seem a little jumbled. Stick with me here. But understanding how you fit into your family system as a child, how you navigated the world as a child can give you really powerful insight into who you are as an adult and where you get to grow and question some of the beliefs and the patterns that you've held for a really long time. And this also can be a place where you start to see the people in your family with a little bit more compassion. I distinctly remember this turning point in my relationship with my future mother in law because of inner child work. And I'm so fucking grateful because my in-laws are wonderful people, but they do try my patience a little bit because it's a different family. It's different rules, it's different habits, it's different upbringings. Like it's just something that if you are going to be assimilated into another family, whether that's through marriage or whatever, you just have to kind of learn about them. You have to figure out their ticks. You have to figure out their quirks. And the first couple years of my relationship with my mother-in-law was I was just trying to figure her out. And it didn't fully click into place until I started exploring inner child work. And I had this aha moment. We were driving in the car to go see my in-laws. And I told Rob, I was like learning about inner child work. I'm like, you know what? I bet your mom talks as much as she does and interrupts people as much as she does and is as anxious as she is. I love her dearly, but just making an observation. And again, just like talks and talks and talks as much as she does because she grew up in a family of 8 and she probably didn't get any love or attention unless she was constantly talking, constantly, putting herself in a position where she could receive love and support from her family. And like, I just remember this conversation with him on the way there, and he's like, "Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like, I can see that." Just like having observed her behaviors over the last, his entire lifetime. And I shit you not, at dinner that weekend, I don't know how it came up, but his mother said, "Well, when I was growing up, if you weren't talking or you weren't loud, you didn't get attention." And I just looked at Rob and I was like, "Oh my God, it makes so much sense." Like, and we were just both like, you could just see there was like this light bulb moment of like, oh, okay. So the more that we can start to understand people and maybe understand the wounding that they may carry as their inner child, the things that maybe they didn't get when they were growing up, the ways that they've compensated for that, the ways that they've had to learn to work in the world to feel safe, happy, and loved, the more compassion we can have for people. Because in that moment, all that I saw when my mother-in-law said that was just a wounded little girl who wanted love, safety, support, and praise from her parents, who were stretched thin because they had 8 children and they grew up, in a little bit of poverty. There wasn't a ton of resources available for them. And I just saw in that moment, like, oh, it makes me want to cry thinking about it. Like, I just saw this wounded little girl who all she wanted was to feel safe, happy, and loved and supported by her family. And the only way that she knew how to get that was by being the loudest, by being the one who, like, thinks about all possible scenarios and like worries about them and tries to keep herself safe, by interrupting people. And so now when she interrupts me while I'm talking, I take a pause and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, sending you so much love." Because I know she's not aware of, or at least to a certain degree, she's aware enough to say that at the dinner table, but not aware enough to want to do something about it. Which love that. Wish she would take it another step further, but here we are. I'm here to just accept people as they are. But all in those moments when she does like frustrate me or test my patience, same goes for my own biological parents. In those moments when they test your patience just by being who they are, I try to send myself and them and their inner child and my inner child so much love and compassion because I know that they're just doing the best that they can for what they know. And I'm not sitting here saying that I'm perfect. Like, I kind of jokingly posted a TikTok about like in the bathroom when I was at this big house with my in-laws family. Like, there was like 20 of us in a house, so it was a little chaotic, and that whole family is just very loud and there's just a lot going on and it's very overstimulating. So I posted a TikTok kind of jokingly of like, prevent a crash out with me in the bathroom while I spend a week with my family. Like, and I got so much response to that video, which I thought was funny. They're like, "Well, you don't have to spend time with them." Or there's other people in the comments like, "Oh my God, this is relatable." Like, because I think collectively being with our family can be challenging. And like, I say all of this and I have absolutely so much love in my heart for both my families, my family and my in-laws family. But they still fucking test you. They still activate me. They still make me question my sanity at times. And like, I think that's pretty normal. I would be hard pressed to find somebody out there who is never triggered by their family, who is never on the verge of reacting to their family or does react, poorly to their family or has any issues, because I think it's just part of the game. We are such tribal beings. All we want to do is fit into our families, into our tribe. But that tribe often has different beliefs than us. They have things that we don't necessarily agree with. They make decisions that we don't agree with. They have behaviors that we don't agree with. So the more that you can come back to a place of like compassion and love and acceptance for who they are, even if you don't agree with it, have compassion for the fact that they're just a little kid running around in an adult body and they probably have no idea why they do the things that they do. And even if they do, they don't think that they can change it or they don't have the tools to change it. It helps you have a little bit more understanding for people and why they are the way they are. Doesn't mean that we can, you know, accept shitty behavior from our family members or that we should let them treat us in a way that's um disrespectful. I do not advocate for that. But what I do advocate for is, especially if you were on this journey of like understanding yourself and being your highest self and all the things, I think you're just going to get to a point where like you have to accept your family for who they are and you have to understand that like you might have to go your own way. Cue Fleetwood Mac song. You can go your own way. You don't have to do the same things that your family did. You don't have to hold the same beliefs that your family does. You don't have to do things that make any goddamn sense to your family. There is still a pretty large portion of my life that I don't share with my parents or my in-laws because I know that they wouldn't understand. This podcast is one of them. I don't think they would understand why I'm doing this, why I'm putting effort into something like a podcast or posting on social media or have a coaching business. Like their limiting beliefs around what it means to be successful. You have to work a 9 to 5 job, or you have to, do all these certain steps. Like their limiting beliefs around that don't apply to me anymore because I don't tell them about my work life. I tell them, things that I feel comfortable sharing, but I haven't got to the point yet where I feel comfortable sharing about this part of my life with them because I'm still in this like cocoon, this like delicate phase of building my business, being my authentic self and figuring all of that out. And if I were to tell them, I would be afraid that their projections and limiting beliefs would make me doubt myself, and question whether I wanted to keep going. And maybe you can relate to that, maybe not, but it's okay to not share everything in your life with your family as well. I've chosen to not share those parts yet. I think I will at some point. I've chosen to share, a limited part of my life with my family because, again, I don't want their projections changing my course of action because no offense to my parents or my in-laws, but they don't have the life that I want. And if somebody is trying to give you advice or somebody is warning you about something or, oh, maybe you shouldn't do that. Are you sure you want to do that? And what about this economy? Like all the crazy shit that our parents will say to us. If they don't have the life that you want, I don't think that their opinion should be super relevant to how you make choices in the world. My parents have a great life for them, but it's not a life that I want. And therefore, I'm not going to take career advice from my parents. My parents both got a job out of high school. My dad never went to college and got a job that he had for 30 years. My mom got her associate's degree, had a job for 35, 40 years. They bought their own house. They did all this thing, but times have changed, right? Like, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole too much, but their beliefs about success, about careers, about money, about the order of things that you should do in your life, like get married, buy a house, have kids, that's not necessarily the beliefs that I subscribe to. And that's not the life that I want for myself. And I think it's okay to want different things than your family. Maybe you want the same things as your family and you get to share all of the parts of your life with them. I freaking love that for you. But for myself personally, it hasn't felt like the right choice to share everything in my life with my family. And I think that can be part of the reason why it feels a little tiring at times to be around, all of my families because I don't feel like I can fully express and share all of myself with them yet. And that's something that I'm working on. That's still something that I'm moving through where I can get to the place where I'm comfortable enough in my own being, my own authentic self, my own power to show up in front of my family fully without worrying that they will question me or push me into a place of self doubt. And that's not them doing that on purpose, right? they're coming with the best of intentions. Families worry about each other. They have opinions about how you run your life. But I have been in this like very delicate phase, again, this like cocoon phase where so much is still unfolding and building. I'm still learning so much about myself that I don't yet feel that I can be 100% myself around either my family or my in-laws, my sister excluded. She's my twin. We share everything. We shared a womb, right? Like, so she's in on it. But there's a large portion of extended family who I just don't share that part of my life with. And I think that gets to be okay. And maybe there will come a time where I feel like I can fully share that. But also, if it doesn't get to that point and I am intentionally choosing not to share, I think that's okay. I think there's a lot of pressure with biological family to share everything with them, to be the person that they wanted you to be, to exist in the box that they put you in. And sometimes that box does not feel comfortable. Sometimes that box is like suffocating and you don't want to be there. So if you're resonating with this, if you feel like there's maybe parts of you that you don't share with your family, there's beliefs that your family holds that you're questioning, there's things that you do in your adult life that you're questioning where it came from, why you do the thing you do. Um, Start to examine your relationship with your parents. Start to examine your relationship to your inner child. And this is something that I absolutely love guiding people in doing because I know it can be complex to like tease out what do I believe versus what does my family believe versus what do I need to do to support my inner child. Like, this is a complex relationship to navigate, but it can be so freaking healing to, really fully understand yourself on that level and to understand the people in your life on that level. Because again, since I started diving into inner child work and emotional intelligence, I feel like I've been able to relate or at least be around my family in such deeper ways and also have a lot more compassion for them when they maybe say something that is a little frustrating or triggering. Like, it's okay. Like, that's the person being triggered, aka me, that's more a reflection of me than it is them in that moment. And I get to use the tools that I have, like going and crashing out in the bathroom, like doing some breath work, jumping, shaking, screaming into a pillow, going for a walk, removing myself from the situation, focusing on 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can touch, 1 thing you can taste. Like, I might have fucked up the order there, but you get what I'm saying. You have tools in your tool belt, or at least I have built up a tool belt of things, and help other women to do that as well, so that you can enjoy your interactions with family and understand that everybody's just doing the best for what they can at the time. Again, I think the more time we spend with families, the more that can really like test us a little bit. So I think 2 weeks of like my family and then in-laws family was a real testament to my nervous system because I don't feel like I reacted negatively in any way. I did take space when I needed it. I did take alone time when I needed it. I did express boundaries when we started having conversations about things that I didn't want to talk about, aka politics, religion. You have every right to set boundaries with your family about what you talk about, how often you see them, what they can ask you. Like, there is a time and a place for expressing those boundaries if you feel like your family uh, pushes your buttons a little bit. And I will say, nobody is more effective at pushing our buttons than our family because they're the people that sometimes know us the longest, know us the deepest, but also, again, they can put you in that box for who you used to be, who you were when you grew up, who they wanted you to be, and sometimes we don't fit into that mold. And so their expectation of you is different than how you actually show up. And that can lead to confusion, resentment. So you get to, come from a place of compassion and understanding that maybe you're not fitting into the box that they wanted you to, but that's okay. You get to have that conversation with them. You get to show up as yourself and trust that they're your family. And in theory, they will love you no matter what. I think that's something that I've, really come to grips with over the last few years is like, yeah, I'm not fully ready to like share everything with my family yet, but I know that they love me. I know that they support me. I know that they are proud of me, but I'm no longer doing everything in my life to make my parents proud. Which, if you would have asked me 7 years ago, 5 years ago, what's your biggest fear? It would be a failure and not making my parents proud. Now I'm like, not living up to my highest potential and achieving the success that I want, like, for me and living out my vision that I have for myself. So if you find yourself constantly doing everything for your parents' approval and validation, like this is maybe a chance to re-examine that as well. But if you are spending time with family and you do find that they are activating, exhausting in any way, like you have tools available to support your nervous system, to support yourself, to support your well being during a time like that. Rely on things like breath work, meditation, prayer, if that's helpful for you. Get out into nature, go for a walk, move your body, take some space away, lock yourself in the bathroom if you need to. Do what you need to do to protect yourself so that you can show up to these interactions from a place of love and understanding. And you can get the most out of your time with your family because as much as they may frustrate us. And again, speaking from my own experience, I feel like my family, I got very blessed. I'm very grateful that they are who they are. They're compassionate, wonderful, kind hearted people that maybe we disagree on things, but that's fine. We don't need to always agree on every little thing. And we still have a lot of love for each other. But we only have limited time on this earth. Where nobody's getting out of this situation alive. And the time that we have to spend with our family is limited. So hopefully you can get to a place where like spending time with your family does feel really enjoyable and you are able to really like squeeze the most out of that experience while also supporting yourself and your nervous system along the way. And know that like if your family is really challenging or potentially toxic, dysfunctional, for some reason or another, I tend to attract best friends who have mommy and daddy issues, which you know who you are. I love you. But it tends to be a theme in my life. What does that say about me? That a lot of my closest friends do have dysfunctional or toxic families who I don't know if it's ever gonna get to be to a place where they're not toxic or dysfunctional. So sometimes the best thing that you can do to have a relationship with your family is to not have a relationship with your family, to put distance between you, to protect yourself in that situation. And maybe at some point you come back to each other and you have a good relationship, but not always. Just because they're your biological family does not mean you have to have a relationship with them if they are shitty and treat you like crap and you walk away from encounters with them feeling like just feeling awful. That's not the point. There are so many other people you can have in your life and your chosen family, your soul family that can fill that role for you. I know it's never going to be the same as coming from your biological parents. Again, like two of my closest friends have had a lot of struggles with their relationship, both to their mom and dad for various reasons. And I know the importance to them of having really key, like soul level friendships. And I love having like deep sisterhood like friendships. So that's probably why I attract them in. And something that they both, have expressed to me is like how important their soul family and their friendships are to them, even more so because their biological families kind of suck. Like, no offense, but there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of wounding, there's a lot of dysfunction, there's a lot of toxicity. So if you're sitting in the camp of like, your family is not so great, your biological family is triggering, traumatizing, toxic, three T's. Maybe the goal is to get a little bit of separation. Maybe the goal is just to like soothe yourself, get to know your inner child, your own nervous system, and how you can like rebuild from a childhood and relationships with your parents that weren't what you wanted them to be. There can be a lot of disappointment when our parents don't meet our expectations as children, when they aren't able to give us what we need, physically or emotionally. So there can be a lot of like grief, resentment, disappointment that comes when our biological family just isn't able to show up for us in the way that we need them to. So if that's your experience as well, like sending you so much love, and if you want to be part of my soul fam, I'm lifting my arm. You can be under my wing. I'm happy to take you in because I know how important it is to have like deep connections when your biological family isn't what you want them to be. And I can't personally speak to that again, but I can speak to the experience that my friends have shared with me. And I know that your chosen family often feels a lot safer than your biological family when there has been, a history of trauma or abuse of any kind, or just that like dysfunction and toxicity. So know that you're not alone if that is your experience. And you also deserve to have the tools that you need to regulate, to feel safe in your body, to feel safe in setting boundaries, to feel safe in expressing yourself and being, rooted and grounded in who you are. And sometimes that means taking time away from our family. Sometimes that means just being brutally honest with ourselves and what our family is capable of, and really, uh, having clear expectations for how they can show up for you. Because if we don't have clear expectations and we're constantly expecting our family to be something that they're not, there's going to be a lot of resentment. And that's not a great feeling. That's an icky feeling. So, again, personally can't speak to a ton of that because thankfully I was blessed with a really great biological family. They had their shortcomings, in terms of emotional intelligence and regulation. And I think that's normal. I think that's fine. Maybe it's not. If you have a different opinion, let me know. I think all families have their set of challenges. I think all families have their instilled beliefs that we get to deconstruct if it's not in alignment with our beliefs. I think all families have their coping mechanisms that maybe aren't the healthiest. They all have something that's passed down generation to generation until somebody comes along and wants to disrupt it. Somebody in the family is the black sheep who is misunderstood. Me, to a certain degree. Again, my family's pretty darn great, but I know a lot of people who are in that like black sheep category, the one that's going first on all of this work, the one that's breaking generational cycles of trauma. And it's not an easy place to be. So I see you. I love you. I'm sending so much support. I do think you should be supporting your nervous system and your body, and those are the things I love doing. So if you are resonating with that part of the episode, or really anything that I'm sharing here about family and getting to a place where you can understand yourself as you're in your inner child, your nervous system, your family's nervous system, like I'd love to support you and work through that as well. You can always book a free call with me in the show notes. And if you have any questions about anything I've shared in this episode too, or want to share your own experience, my DMs are always open. I'd love to connect with you. Um, but I just felt called to share, like after spending a couple weeks with my family, I was like, this is an interesting learning experience. And again, coming from a place of so much love for my family, when we do this kind of work, it can be easy to point the finger and like blame people. Like I'm a perfectionist because my dad's a perfectionist. Well, that's not his fault. He was doing the best that he could for himself at the time. He was giving praise because I was doing something good, and it wasn't his fault that I took that on and like adopted that belief of like I have to be perfect all of the time to get love and praise. That's not his responsibility. So if you're listening to this and you're a mom or a dad, or you are planning to have children, I think the best thing that you can do for yourself is like try your best before you have children to understand your own inner child, your own nervous system, your own upbringing, your own conditioning and limits before, bringing a child into this world. And if you've already brought a child into this world, it's okay. It's not too late. The best thing that you can do for your kid is like understanding yourself, and also understanding your nervous system and how to support it. Because when you're a parent, you're regulating for yourself and also your child who doesn't know how to do that yet. So, and we can go into that entirely on another episode, but children don't know how to regulate their nervous systems. They don't know how to feel their feelings until we show them the way. I think children are better at feeling their feelings than adults a lot of the times, but they learn by watching what you do. And if you are raising children, I think it is your responsibility to do your own work to deconstruct who you are as a person, why you are the way that you are, how you can support your inner child and your own healing, so that you don't end up, raising a generation that doesn't know how to feel their feelings, who doesn't have that emotional intelligence, who doesn't know how to support themselves. But you don't have to be perfect. Like, if you even just have the intention of like, I'm going to do better than what I experienced as a kid, or I'm going to do my best to understand myself so that I can show up for my kid, because children are mirrors. They will really like mirror back to you any of the lessons that you need to learn. So they can be awfully triggering at times as well. But I say this with so much love, but like no matter what, you're probably going to fuck up your kid in some way. Again, said with so much love, but it's just impossible to do things perfectly when raising children. You are never going to be a parent who absolutely never, triggers your children or lashes out at your children in a way that doesn't feel good, or like it's just, I think it's inevitable that in some way, shape, or form, your children will have something that they have to grow through later in life, because of the way that they were raised. And as long as you are being as intentional as possible with knowing yourself, regulating yourself, showing up as best as you can. The rest of that is on them, later in life to understand why they are the way that they are. So hopefully that takes a little bit of the pressure off. I know that may have been able to be said in a better way, but you are going to do something that quote unquote messes up your kid in some way, shape, or form. Like they might adopt habits that aren't great, or they might develop coping mechanisms or have certain like quirks later on in their life that they have to deconstruct. But as long as you are being as intentional as possible with your own healing, your own growth, your own nervous system and emotional regulation, showing up for your kid as best as you can, like you don't have to be perfect. I just want to like take a little bit of that pressure off yourself because I think there is enough pressure, especially on moms, to like be perfect and to like never mess up and raise emotionally regulated children. And like, there's just so much pressure on moms. I work with a lot of moms. I don't personally have my own children. That feels like a lot for me. It feels like too much. I don't think I want children. But there's so much pressure on moms to be perfect. And it's like, you really don't have to be. You really just have to come back to like trying your best at being intentional about where your shortcomings are, understanding yourself as a person and as a mom, and then just like showing up. Your kids just need to feel safe, happy, and loved. And if you can do your best to give them that, everything else will be okay. They will figure everything else out, especially now that we're in the generation where it's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to talk about your feelings. So, caveat there, but like if you're raising children, know that there's no way you're going to escape it without wounding them, emotionally in some way. And hopefully it's very small and it's something they can work through, but you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to like put that pressure on yourself. So, sidebar. But if you're raising your own children, if you're spending time with your own family, if you're meeting your inner child and understanding your own internal family system, like I'm sending you so much love, so much compassion, so much patience, because man, this can be an exhausting process. Um, but I would love to support you if you feel like you need a little bit of support on that journey, because know that you don't have to walk it alone. And the more that you can involve your body, the more that you can teach your body that she's safe, the more, the quicker you can make progress in that realm. That's all I'll say. So thank you for coming to this TED Talk about family and relationships and all of the things. If something landed for you in this episode and you want me to explore it deeper, or you want to have a chat about it in the DMs, you are always welcome to message me on Instagram, TikTok, or leave a comment below on this episode. But I hope you loved it. I hope you take something away from this episode, even if it's just a little bit more compassion for yourself and your family. And if you're spending time with your family, support yourself as best as you can. And I love you, and I will see you on the next ep.